So we're going to go ahead with The Psychopath Inside, which is a very interesting book, which is on one hand a story and on the other hand, non-fiction, about neuroscience and about what makes a psychopath and whatnot. And the last time we have discovered, quote unquote, that there is no real definition for being a psychopath. Even though, if you Google it, you're probably going to find something, and I have also found something. But in reality, it is very, very difficult to say what is a psychopath, even though there is some traits, some things that make somebody, I guess, more likely to be one. But yeah, as empathy or the lack of empathy actually is one of these traits. And this is what we're going to continue with and what we're going to go ahead with. So the lack of empathy, the defining trait. Most psychiatrists agree that one of the defining characteristics of psychopaths is the lack of interpersonal empathy. Psychopaths live in what may be defined as a flat emotional playing field. Cold and hot cognition. Cold cognition is rationality independent of emotions. Emotionless processing of thoughts, perceptions, short-term or executive memories, plans, and rule-making. Hot cognition is emotional cognition through and with emotions. Fallon includes, which is the author, James Fallon, includes in this category emotional memory and socially, ethically, and morally programmed behaviors. Which, if I think about it, it kind of makes sense that somebody that is a psychopath, especially does not understand social norms, does not have, what does not having mean, but probably not the most moral person in terms of, acting. Can you act in a moral way? I know that you know what I mean, but, it's about the words there anyway. And, ethically, definitely also not on point. I always think about violence. I don't know why, but if I murder somebody, then I really do give a fuck about social norms. If you're a murderer, you're gonna be fucked in society. Nobody wants to do anything to do with you, or wants to have anything to do with you anymore, because you're a murderer. And on the other hand, ethically, we could discuss that, we could talk about that. And also morally, it is like, just because it is such a societal thing to not murder doesn't mean that it is abnormal, if you understand what I mean. Like, it is just something that society decided quite, okay, we don't kill each other. Even though we do sometimes, and it is also legal. Executions and whatnot. But yeah, back in the days, like our really Asian ancestors, they killed themselves all the fucking time, and nobody gave a fuck about that. It's just been a part of their life. It's been a part of their society. It's been part of what things are. But because we're now having rules, I don't want to say that this is an unnecessary rule. I really don't want to say so. I don't want to be like, wow, okay, it just does not make any sense that we're not allowed to kill each other. No, this is not what I mean, but it's just a made-up rule, which kind of then defines what a quote-unquote normal person then is. So therefore, this is also, I don't know, maybe not, Well, I do quite see now that psychopathy is definitely very difficult to explain and conceptualize and also verbalize, because I think depends on how you view things and how you look at a certain person, or how you look at psychopathy in general. Anyway, let's move on. A little rant. Connecting with others requires both cold cognition, where you understand what they're thinking and what's an appropriate response, and hot, which is emotional cognition, where you can emphasize with their feelings and attitudes. Someone with damage to the hot system might have difficulties predicting other people's thoughts and, most of all, sharing his feelings or her feelings. The theory of mind. Fallon defines theory of mind as elaborated medial prefrontal system that allows us to consider others' thoughts and beliefs even if they're different from our own. The author says there might be a dichotomy between empathy and theories of mind. And there is a note there from the author of this summary. Did he mean link between empathy and theories of mind? I didn't get to the point, and it feels like Dutton used the wrong word here or there. Why Dutton? Isn't it James Fallon? Well, anyway. Dichotomy between empathy and theories of mind. Did he mean link between empathy? The dichotomy. Well, what is a dichotomy? Division, separation, divorce, split, gulf, difference, contrast. There is a great dichotomy between social theory and practice. There's a great difference. So there's a difference between empathy and theories of mind. Well, autistic people have empathy but no theory of mind. Well, theory of mind is defined as elaborated medial prefrontal system that allows us to consider others' thoughts and beliefs even if they're different from our own. But isn't this what empathy is? Well, what is the definition of empathy then? The ability to understand and share the feelings of others. Share the feelings of others. Understand the feelings of others. Well, it is about feelings there. And the theory of mind is about thoughts, beliefs, not emotions. Was it about emotions? No, feelings, yeah, well, feelings and emotions probably are the same thing, quite. So autistic people seem to be able to be empathetic. Oh no, they have theories of mind but lack empathy. Yeah, definitely the case. I mean, this is definitely a thing, which also makes it very difficult for people with autistic traits or autistic people in general to connect with people and also have a quote unquote normal social life, because they just can't show empathy. They can't do so, but they can see other people's thoughts and understand other people's thoughts, which might actually have to do something with intelligence and also beliefs. I mean, allows us to consider others' thoughts, consider seeing them, understanding them, and knowing that they are there. But emotions, well, if you think about it, this is then like cold cognition is pretty much on point. But hot cognition, when it comes to emotions and feelings and all of these things, it's completely fucked. Which I can really, and I might have said it before, but autistic people really do have a hard time because of that. Well, yeah, that means that psychopaths lack emotional empathy but have cognitive empathy, such as they can guess what you're feeling but do so without in a cold and calculated way, without feeling sympathy. But they do so in a cold and calculated way and without feeling sympathy. Says Fallon, bold and italic are mine. And there's a quote: a psychopath has a poorly functioning ventral system, usually used for hot cognition, but he can have a normal or even supernatural dorsal system, so that without the bother of conscience and empathy, the cold planning and execution of predatory behaviors becomes finely tuned, convincing, highly manipulative, and formidable. Because psychopaths' dorsal systems work so well, they can learn how to appear that they care, thus making them even more dangerous. Which, I mean, it really is a fucked up thing if you think about it. I mean, if somebody's able to feel with you without feeling with you, so it just seems that, I mean, they understand you and they understand the thoughts and beliefs and also the feelings quite that you're having, but they just don't give a fuck about that. It's not like that they are influenced by that in any way, but they understand that. Which, if you think about it, is truly dangerous. I mean, if you can understand and create a concept out of a person's, quite belief system and or emotional system concerning, okay, well, when this happens and that happens, this person feels this certain way. I mean, if you understand that, this is going to be fucking mind war. It's not only going to be probably, I mean, a physically, probably is the wrong word, but maybe a physically aggressive person or a physically dangerous person, but it doesn't really seem to be dumb, but actually highly intellectual. Kind of the best war machine, isn't it the case? Brain damage is necessary for psychopathy, but a bad environment is needed too. The author was a staunch believer that, I don't know what staunch even means, a supporter, stalwart, trusty, well, anyway, believer that we are shaped by nature and not nurture. But as he got to know himself more and as he began to research, he started changing his mind. My note, some of its evidence for nurture versus nature is lacking. Read the criticism for more. Genes and environment interact in a number of ways. Genotype environment correlation. If your father is aggressive, he will pass on the genes, but also the attitude at home, which will reinforce those genes. And an aggressive attitude in life might lead to more confrontations, making the kid even more aggressive. Yeah, I kind of have that. And I know that about myself, that I have gotten and I've seen it. And one has to be really clear about certain things, about traits that one is getting from or receiving or whatever from family members. Yeah. Epigenetic marking, a quote-unquote tag of chemical information that only gets activated under certain situations with certain environment-related stimuli. Says Fallon, and there's a quote, "The genome is the book you inherited at birth. The epigenome is the way you read that book." But don't exaggerate the role of nurture. Fallon also makes a note that we shouldn't overplay the importance of nurture. So he says, and this is a quote again, "Kids are malleable, but mostly at the extremes. In the absence of bad abuse or extreme genetics, kids will turn out okay." Well, yeah. I mean, we've seen, I guess, it also depends on how you define bad abuse. Well, extreme genetics, there's going to be some markers on how to define that and how to say what is extreme genetics. But when it comes to abuse, like, it's difficult to say what is bad abuse. I mean, there is abuse and there's just being not abused, but what is bad abuse? But I would say, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that unfortunately have been abused in their childhood and they still turn out very, 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 very successful. I mean, Tim Ferriss, with his quote-unquote outcoming, in terms of that, really is an important figure when I think about that, because he is really, really, really successful and a really extremely smart person. And so it's, yeah. Well, yeah, I would say so as well. A new theory of, in brackets, and it's not brackets, but you know what I mean, criminal psychopathy. Fallon comes up with his own new theory on psychopathy, which requires 3 legs. The first one is unusually low functioning of the orbital prefrontal cortex and anterior temporal lobe, including the amygdala. The high-risk variants of several genes, the most famous being the warrior gene, which is the second point, and the third point or leg is early childhood emotional, physical, or sexual abuse. He calls it theory of psychopathy, but he seems to be referring to the more extreme version of psychopathy, the more criminal and violent one, which I'm always having in my mind and I don't know why. Psychopaths cannot change themselves. One of the chapters is called "Can You Change a Psychopath?" And there's an answer by Fallon. We are machines and cannot fundamentally change ourselves through sheer force of will. But Fallon also acknowledges that a little change might happen if he changes the narrative of his actions and motives, which is going to be framing or reframing, therefore. So there's another quote. "It could be like someone who describes himself as having a refreshing, flexible, open, and healthy attitude to sex, rather than just admitting to himself that what he really is promiscuous." Well, I'm actually going to give you what it means. Licentious, sexually indiscriminate, immoral, unchaste, debauched, dissolute, dissipated. Well, the good thing is, when I look it up and the German translation is actually the exact same fucking shit as, well, the English one. Thank you. promiscuitive or promisic. Well, amazing, thank you. But then again, he adds that wouldn't change the nature of the underlying behavior. He could try to push through a plan of behavioral redemption, but the problem with that is that he doesn't care to change. He couldn't control a specific issue of his behavior, but if he did so, all his energies would be sucked up in that one thing. It's like Oprah controlling her weight. Oprah is not lacking willpower, and if all she did was focusing on her weight, she could stay thin. But if she wants to also pursue all her other ambitions, she will get back to putting on weight. For other possible cures and drugs, says Fallon, and there's a quote again, psychopathic tendencies are particularly hard to fight, and attempted cures may make only small differences. Drugs that influence the monoamine neurotransmitter systems can partially reduce impulsivity and aggression, and early interventions involving diet and meditation can decrease behavioral problems, but the core neuropsychological deficits leading to lack of empathy and remorse remain. There are no magic bullets. Well, what about killing people? Just joking. How much is there left, actually? It's actually a very, very comprehensive and long summary, but I am 16 minutes in and I'm going to record the other full. Well, I'm willing to go through psychopathy might rise in areas with chronic violence. This is going to be the last one for today. So if psychopathy is partially nurture and environment, then it convenes that bad nurturing and bad environment will germ more psychopaths. So there's again a quote, I've hypothesized that in areas with chronic violence, from Gaza to East LA, the concentration of genes associated with psychopathy might be increasing as women mate with bad boys for protection and aggressive genes spread, increasing the violence and repeating the loop. Over generations, we end up with warrior societies. It's a speculative idea, but one that's important to consider and study further. However, I would add the opposite is also true, and in peaceful areas, women might be happier with kinder and more protective men, and the genes for kindness and pro-sociality might increase. I have personally noticed that in safer and more peaceful countries and cities, women are afraid of too direct approaches. Instead, they respond much better to social circle game or to more careful approaches where the man can put them at ease. And well, yeah, I mean, if you think about it as a threat, as an attack, so direct, I mean, I can understand it. I mean, I completely understand the whole concept. Like, of course, makes sense. If I'm living in a violent environment, I want to have, well, a strong man and somebody that can protect me. And this is definitely not going to be somebody that, well, also from a physical perspective on this, I mean, thin and, not strong and definitely not able to do so. Like, not able to protect me and my children and whatnot. Like, it is an inevitable thing that people have to do. Like, I have to, or they have to have a man or have people that can protect them. Well, yeah, and I mean, we could also talk about like subconscious wiring that, okay, this is then something attractive because it is something they need. So on the other hand, if I think about my area, what do people need here? I mean, quite definitely not protection, but financial support or financial freedom, quote unquote. Or this is at least something to strive for, something to have in mind, something to go to, something that would be nice to have. Well, yeah, even though it's would actually be a really interesting study, I guess. Might be actually one or a few. It seems to be too obvious, quite for me. Well, yeah, anyway, gonna end the episode there. I hope that I've been able to talk about some things that were of purpose to you and of use to you, and I'm hopefully gonna see you the next time. So, bye-bye.